Franz Schubert is one of the greatest, also one of the most beloved composers of all time, particularly because he was one of the great composers of melody of all time. There are so many melodies of Schubert that are part of our listening culture that we don't even remember as being by Schubert. The relevance of Schubert's music today is something that one could, from a certain point of view, question. Schubert wrote some of the greatest piano music we will ever have, and yet he himself unusually was not a piano virtuoso nor a public performer. So Schubert, the composer, did not have Schubert, the performer, to help him out by playing his music. So Schubert dies at the age of 31 with very few people really knowing who he was as the great composer. And he wrote music, therefore, not necessarily for the attention span of today, which is 2.5 seconds, but for the attention span of the listener of his time, and not even the listener in the concert hall, but the listener who would happen to be in a room to listen to Schubert's latest compositions, a friend, let us say. But if you go along with Schubert on this transcendental journey that he takes us on in his compositions, there is no music that is more touching and more fulfilling to listen to. And it's not music that you have to try to listen to. It takes you over. It engulfs you. It brings you in, and you're absolutely taken in by it. We're going to have several works of his on the program, waltzes that he used to play so other people could dance. We're going to have some of the impromptus of Schubert, short pieces, relatively short pieces, which are lyric dramas in single acts. But the main work on the program will be the work that Schubert wrote 6 weeks before he died. And there is, and I'll play just a bit of it for you, there is something otherworldly about this music that is apparent right from the beginning of it. You almost sense that he, at least in some part of him, realized that he already was 1 foot in the other world. This is how it opens. And this distant rumble that's tucked in at the end of the phrase we hear in the bass. One doesn't have to stretch one's imagination unduly to hear that as the premonition of the death to come. And yet there are moments of a wonderful lighthearted fancy in the piece also. And interestingly enough, it ends brilliantly, optimistically, with an affirmation of life. But what a journey he takes us on. And all of these compositions, it's a composer that for me, the death of Schubert is the greatest tragedy of all music. There are a lot of great composers who unfortunately died in their early 30s, in their mid-30s, Mozart, Mendelssohn, Chopin, Gershwin. But Schubert never knew one day of the kind of acclaim for his music that these composers did. And yet there's this rich trove of music, and now he's one of the most popular composers of all the great classics.